Former United States President Donald Trump is currently being deposed by the New York State Attorney General as part of a probe into the finances of the Trump organization. This was confirmed by the under fire Republican leader on social media, where he described it as the continuation of the greatest witch hunt in U.S. history. The deposition is unrelated to a recent FBI search on Trump's Mar-a-Lago property in Palm Beach, Florida, which sent shockwaves through the country this week as a chorus of Republicans have come to the former president's defense, accusing the FBI and the Justice Department of a politicized investigation. The search related to a probe into the potential mishandling of classified documents in violation of the Presidential Records Act is really what he's being investigated for. But for more on this, let's speak to our correspondent in New York, Sherwin Bryce-Pease, who joins us now. Sherwin, a good afternoon to you. I want to talk about the latest regarding the FBI search of Trump's home and the subsequent fallout. But first, update us on the deposition he will sit for today with the State Attorney General of New York, just one among several legal probes that he and his family are grappling with since leaving office.
Yeah, no, Lady, I imagine President Trump feeling that when it rains, it pours, right? So many legal probes that he's having to grapple with, including these civil investigation being led by the Attorney General of New York State, Letitia James. We can tell you that the president is currently being deposed and has asserted his Fifth Amendment right not to incriminate himself. So essentially, the president has gone to this deposition, an investigation essentially into possible allegations of tax fraud, misleading financial statements to banks and the Internal Revenue Service in terms of tax rebates and the acquisition of loans. She's really taking a look at the Trump organization in terms of these fraud allegations. And we can tell you the breaking news from New York City is that former President Trump has asserted his Fifth Amendment right and has refused to answer her questions due to the risk that he might incriminate himself. But of course, this is just one of several probes, legal probes, a web of legal probes that the president is facing. No less the one related to possible violations of the Presidential Records Act, right? This is why the FBI went down to Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida on Monday. 30 agents executing a federal judge endorsed search warrant looking for what we believe to be classified documents that should not have been removed from the White House but placed with the National Archive. White House documents are the ownership belong to the American people, the public, and that is why the National Archive have purview in terms of White House documents. There is also a Manhattan District Attorney criminal probe into the Trump organization and fraud, possible fraud. We also have a District Attorney in the state of Georgia that is investigating possible interference in seeking to overturn the Georgia state election result that saw Joe Biden win by a slim margin. And then the bigger picture, right? The January 6th committee and the Department of Justice is also probing the efforts, certainly from Trump supporters, to prevent the peaceful transfer of power from former President Trump to Joe Biden, which resulted in the attack on the United States Capitol on January 6th last year. So there are a number of probes here, but the breaking news from New York at this hour is that former President Trump is asserting his Fifth Amendment right and not answering the questions being presented to him by the Attorney General of New York, Letitia James.
Yeah.
Lady.
An interesting development there, Sherwin. And then, of course, the outrage from Republicans really has been quite palpable, right, since the FBI executed that search warrant as part of their investigation into the former president's handling of White House documents, including classified documents, which he removed to his private residence, with Trump today suggesting on social media that federal agents might have planted documents during their search. What are you hearing with regards to that, and also what the reaction has been from Republicans and supporters?
Lady, in many ways, the narrative now is being dominated by the Republican Party, no less by former President Trump. He is the one that took to his social media platform, Truth Social, to announce that the FBI was conducting a search of Mar-a-Lago. That's when we got this news on Monday. He also took to Twitter today saying the following, to Truth Social, the FBI and the others from the federal government would not let anyone, including my lawyers, be anywhere near the areas that were rummaged and otherwise looked at during the raid on Mar-a-Lago. Everyone was asked to leave the premises. They wanted to be left alone without any witnesses to see what they were doing, taking, or hopefully not planting. So we are seeing a narrative emerging here accusing the FBI and the Justice Department of possibly planting evidence during that search. Expect to see more from this narrative. The Republican Party, Kevin McCarthy, the leader of the House caucus of Republicans, says that they are threatening to investigate the Justice Department if and when Republicans take control of the House of Representatives after November's midterm elections. They link the raid, Republicans do, to what they say are democratic efforts to prevent the former president from running for president again in 2024. The Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell called on the Justice Department to explain himself. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who's been tapped as a possible front runner in terms of the Republican nomination in 2024, he has called it another escalation in the weaponization of federal agencies against the regime's political opponents. So referring to the Biden administration as a regime. And there have also been aspersions cast on the White House that they were somehow involved in this Justice Department and FBI search warrant. It was a question put to the White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre. This was her response.
No, the president was not briefed, was not aware of it. No one at the White House was given a heads up. No, that did not happen.
Is the White House at all concerned, given the domestic political climate, but also the signal that it sends to the rest of the world that the Department of Justice carried out this sort of operation on a former president, that it could even create the appearance of politically motivated prosecutors? So
first off, and you've heard us say this many times at this podium, you've heard the president say this, the Justice Department conducts investigations independently, and we leave any law enforcement matters to them. It would not be appropriate for us to comment on any ongoing investigations. I can say that President Biden has been unequivocal since the campaign. He believes in the rule of law, in the independence of the Justice Department investigations, that those investigations should be free from political influence, and he has held that commitment as president.
Okay, so the White House adamant that they were not aware that the search warrant was about to be executed. They found out, like the rest of us, when the president tweeted on Truth Social. But certainly a lot of pressure building now on the Justice Department to explain why this raid took place. The private residence of a former president. This is uncharted waters. It's unprecedented. So Republicans in the main really calling on the Justice Department to come forward and explain themselves here. I can, though, tell you, lady, the Justice Department policy is not to comment on ongoing investigations. This is a rule that is not determined by which administration is in power. The Justice Department does not comment on ongoing investigations, and that certainly is holding true as I speak to you right now.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that update. Our correspondent there in New York, Sherwin Bryce-Pease.